Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast. We are your hosts for this evening session. I am the mindset coach Dwayne Dwyer. To my that way, to my to my right, it is the Uncle Junior himself, Mr. Garfield Martin. Below me is across the table with Chris McClellan, and to his right, your left, or your right as well, would be rolling down the street, Mr. Minister Roland Walker. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
I'm well. I'm
I'm still
well.
bobbing my head to the music.
Ow,
Yeah,
that
right?
intro is fire. It is fire.
Facts, facts.
Listen, man, I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Listen, if this is your first evening with us, first and foremost, welcome. We appreciate you. We appreciate the value that you add. And by all means, jump in the chat, announce yourself so that we can acknowledge your presence. Again, if this is your first time, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and hit the like and go ahead and share it with somebody else that you care about because I think we talk about some very interesting things that you can actually benefit from as well as everybody else. Also, last but not least, we want to make sure that we give a shout out to our amazing chat, man. The chat is on fire already. Again, welcome to this evening's show, Michelle Ray, Cassandra McKenzie. Let me see who else. Bernadette Simmons, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, and again, welcome. Gentlemen, this is the first show of the New Year's. Now, here's the deal. I know a lot of people like to talk about New Year's resolutions and things of that nature, but as we're progressing through tonight's conversation, one of the things I want everybody to tell us, right? Do it in the chat, send us a message so we can acknowledge it, right? I want to know what everybody plan on changing or doing different this year. We're not talking about resolutions now. We're talking about just simply making a decision. So you didn't do it because it's the first of the year. You're just doing it because you want to do something different or do something more in your life. So let's make sure that we acknowledge that because we're not looking at New Year's as an idol. Charlotte Jordan, welcome. Good to see you, and welcome to this evening. See, there you go. Look at his face, y'all. All teeth. Welcome to the show. She is always a joy to see. So,
I'm like, what's she doing over here? I'm over here typing, then I saw you, and then I saw her name pop up.
hey man, we love it. Again, we love all mamas on this platform. So by all means, welcome to the show. So again, we've been doing this series of conversations for about this is the last one, the fourth week. And again, remember, I am giving something away. So I decided I want to kind of do it different. So I don't want to ask the question. I'm gonna put a link in the chat here later. And then whoever answered these questions first, it'll let me know over here and so whoever answers the questions first, they get the prize. And I'll make sure I announce the winner as well. So we want to make sure we put that out there. So moving on into this evening's conversation, because we've talked about all types of dysfunction leading up to here. And now we're at the point of talking about the elder dysfunction, whether we're talking within the family, whether we're talking within the community. And I think this is important to consider because elders are significant value added just as that they're a significant value and we're missing a large portion of what they bring to the table. So with that being said, as we dive into this, again, I like the definition and I'm gonna keep the definition rolling, nothing changing this week. And so first and foremost, gentlemen, I want to talk about your observations. What have you seen so far leading up to this point? The respect for elders in our society, whether it's respect, disrespect, however you want to categorize it, by all means share what you've observed so far.
I would say for me, I see a lot of what I would say disrespect for the elder. I work, not even elderly. I know we're talking about elderly, but I'm going to speak from. I work in the elementary school, so I work in around K through 5 students, pre-K through 5. So I see it even at that level, even elementary students who disrespect teachers, and not all of them are um, 50 and 60. They're elderly to them because they're under 12 years old. So, I see the disrespect all the time. There's no fear of consequences. And in many cases, there is no consequences. At some point, I remember growing up, if there was a problem at school, I would go home and I would tell Charlotte Ann, and I would like, hey, so and so, so and so, so and so, the teacher did this, and her response would be was, "What did you do?" Now the parents come up to the school and ready to fight the teacher over stuff like that. So I see, there's a lack of respect from a lot of the parents in the generation under us, and it's being pushed down towards their kids. And I would say these generation, they're just, for some reason, I think we see a lot more of the lack of respect for older people and what they have to offer and what they have to bring to the table nowadays.
I think I'm agreeing with you because you do see more disrespect than you do respect because, and I don't know, I guess it's a twofold conversation when it comes to the why of it, because I think the why of it has to do with our generation more than it does theirs. Because when you don't necessarily, you want to play a friend more than you do the respected elder, it has its consequences.
Wait, hold on, man. You can't put that out there and not kind of
I didn't want to
explain that
jump
in
into something
detail.
that I know gonna come up later. So
Okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. I do like where you're going, sir. Just so that you know.
I'm going to say that the youngsters think the OGs and the elders in the community are trash. I'm gonna just put it out there. They just think they trash. From the way that they're shown on mainstream media and social media to what they see in their everyday lives. None of these kids have anybody in their lives that they look up to and that can snatch them up when they're doing something wrong. They always revert back to their parent, and their parent is always like, "Don't touch my kid, don't touch my kid." We had OGs and elders that would tell us to go home when things were about to pop off, or would snatch us up when we someplace where we're not supposed to be and tell us to go home. We don't have that anymore. I don't know where it went. I don't know what happened, but they don't have that.
Mm.
So they look at elders as peers. You can't tell me what to do. You ain't my mama. You ain't my daddy. You understand that's really how they look at it. They really think the OGs and the elders in our community failed us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think some of it is because some of the ones who started gaining some financial success, they moved away. So when they moved away, what was left in the hood were the people that was left in the hood. And,
Yeah, if you wasn't selling a drug, if you wasn't selling a drug, riding a 2014 Charger on 24s with the music pumping out of it, who are you?
yeah,
Mm.
because back in the day, you had the lawyers and the doctors and the teachers, and you had all of these people still in the neighborhoods. This was probably a little bit before me, and maybe early when I was growing up, but all of those people that had some there were leaders in the community. There were actually leaders in the community. You know what I mean? So I think, there were people to look up to in the community. And I'm sure there still is now. But I think that, sometimes they don't see it as often. Like you said, social media and different ways that men are seen. And then we gotta admit some of it is some of these elders hadn't did the work. You know what I mean? Some of them had did the work and have they haven't built themselves, and then they're trying to push down and say, oh yeah, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And I get it, so you don't turn out like me. However, you're not modeling that. You know what I mean? You're just talking at them and saying what they shouldn't do. So I can understand why some of the young men could have a little bit lack of respect for elders, for some of those people. But it
That's
doesn't
why I
take
said
away the experience and the knowledge and the information that the older person has regardless.
but that's what I was saying earlier about the OGs do a lot of talking, but everybody knows that they're gonna do what they see. They don't care what you say. They're gonna do what they see. So how can you tell me to do this and this is the right thing, but you doing that, and that's making you a whole lot of money and getting you a whole lot of popularity, and it's happening real quick. You
see,
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and when I was coming up, you had a community of I was raised by my great grandmother. You had a community of grandmothers raising their children's children, but the ones under them, the drug dealer, whomever he was, the males under, if the grandmother spoke and the kids got out of line, somebody put hands to them, not beat them down, but got them in line, got them straight. So you knew to respect what she said, what the older person said. And nowadays, you can't necessarily, these days, you can't necessarily trust some of the elders in the community because we were a communal people, we were a tribal people, but now you don't know your next door neighbor. So you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what, their values. So when it comes to discipline, it's like, hold up, you ain't beating my kid. I don't know you. You ain't introduced yourself to me. So when you don't have relationships communally, then it's like, okay, my kid's gonna stay right here, and I'm gonna take them to AAU basketball instead of y'all playing at the court up the street. So they don't grow up together. So now there's no respect for the neighbors or the neighborhood. So it in turns filters down to adults and everybody else.
See, so I like where you guys are going with this, and I kind of want to tie them together because Uncle Junior, you had a great point, and Chris, you gave your, you kind of gave us some feedback based upon some of the things that you've heard from the younger community. And Roland, I think you and I are synced because I think what you and I believe when it comes down to it are perfectly aligned. But it's interesting that it filters over into the education community as well. And so teachers don't, they're not receiving the level of respect. And one of the things that I've realized over the years, um, especially when I was doing my graduate degree, is that there is a concept of like the perfect educational environment, and that perfect educational environment stems from mom, right? And let's just be honest. If your parents are working parents and they're making ends meet, I'm just going to use that example, and they're making ends meet. One of the things that they have to do is they have to work to pay the bills, work to make sure food is on the table, work to make sure you got clothes on your back, work to make sure that the electricity and the water is still running, working. So when there are parent teacher conferences, mom and dad ain't gonna make it. So what the child does not see is that they don't see where the parent makes it okay for them to have a good relationship with their teacher. Now, on the other side of the fence, when the parents are able to attend these meetings and meet the teachers, and they develop a relationship, and the child see that the parents are exchanging phone numbers and things of that nature, the child said, "Oh, they have a good relationship." So now there may be a different level of respect that goes into that relationship with the parent, with the child and the teacher, simply because the parent, in an indirect manner, has given that child permission to have that. And this kind of leads over into who said it? I want to say Queen V said it. Welcome to the show, Queen V. Good to see you always. There it is. She said, "How can you respect elders when you don't respect your parents?" Well, that works on the other side as well. So children generally respect who their parents respect. So when the parents don't respect their parents, why should the child? When the parents don't respect the teachers, why should the child? And I can't remember who said, it, and I apologize. If your child is acting up, you automatically go to the defense of the child instead of, like we like to say, quarterback the situation so that you can get a good. That was Chris. Okay, so that you can quarterback the situation so you can get a good understanding of everything that happens. Because, like we said before, facts look different from person to person. What you might be telling me is a fact, but it's the fact based upon your perspective of the situation. So you need at least three different perspectives to triangulate the truth. So when you look at it, I think it's a very interesting concept when you guys are sharing this, because I agree wholeheartedly. I'm seeing a lot of it's threefold. You got respect, you got disrespect, and what I call disassociation. Like they don't even, what I've seen, they don't even acknowledge elders. They'll see them, they won't say, "Excuse me." They won't say, "Can I help you? Can I get that for you?" You will see an elderly person drop something, and you won't even to take the initiative to bend over and pick it up for them. And to me, all of that is a sign of the respect that a person have for the elderly, for the elderly.
That's something that has to be taught, though. These kids ain't been taught no manners. That's really all it is. These kids have not been taught how to say thank you, excuse me, I'm sorry, let me get behind you real quick. Nah, they just look at you like you stupid, like you supposed to read their mind. They mamas and they daddies need to teach them some manners.
Also, along with that, I think part of it, because we can't necessarily expect an immature child to be mature like an adult. So sometimes when a child knows that the only time you're going to speak to me or say something to me is when you're trying to discipline me, you're not necessarily loving me, so I'm not respecting anything that you say.
But is my interpretation of love stroking my ego?
As a child or the adult,
Either or.
I think
Because
as a child, when you know a person is truly concerned with you, you kind of lend more of an ear to listen to what they're saying versus somebody just always, you need to pull your pants up, you need to do this. You like, God, dog, everything that I do is wrong. So
yeah.
now everything I do is wrong. So whenever you come to me, I don't care what you say, I'm not listening. I'm tuning it out.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I also agree with the other side of it as well because sometimes, and I've said this before, sometimes we confuse love with like. So if all I do is tell you good things and you don't view love as a umbrella, which under that is compassion, care, nurturing, correction, all that other good stuff, then I don't have the right perspective of love. And then when I become an adult, because we talked about this a few weeks ago, when I become an adult, that's what I expect from my mate as well. So I think that's also a way to look at it. Go ahead, Chris.
Another thing that I've seen is that the youngsters really don't trust the elders
Mm.
at all with anything. They really don't trust you.
So where does that come from? Like when you say they don't trust elders, like what
They
exactly
come
do you mean?
from they come from understanding that we should be a lot farther than where we are and how good they are with technology when we were just coming into it. Like most of us are in our 40s. Like we're used to the Commodore 64, the Atari 2700. You understand what I'm saying? We came from that to where we are now, where the entire world is in our hands. And these kids are exposed to so much, they're wondering how the hell we got here.
But
Why
think
aren't
about
you
it.
doing this when I'm doing this?
When what do we do with the kids when they can go here? We say, well, we had to go to the library. We had to learn to do a decimal system. We had to get an Encyclopedia Britannica. We knock everything they do, but then
It's like
we
we don't.
ask,
It's like the OGs don't want to adapt.
right,
It's like they don't want to adapt. They want things to say the way that it was when we had to go to the library and break out an encyclopedia if we wanted to do a report instead of Googling how did dinosaurs live in 65 million years ago and then pulling up 6 or 7 reports. You
Right.
yeah,
understand what I'm
it's
saying?
like
It's
we
like we
knock
don't want to
progress.
adapt.
Yeah,
And we're shitting on them for adapting. And there's the big disconnect. It's like
and
the elders are in their egos, and the kids are like, well, since you in your ego, I'm not going to teach you. There's no way. And I'm going to go over here and make some money. And you can still stay on this corner doing what you're doing.
how many of us are our age with white and gray beards, but yet we trying to put the little ludicrous black on there, and we wearing the little
The
skinny jeans.
Beijing, ain't that what it's called? The
Yeah,
Beijing.
Beijing. Then we
Yeah.
put the little skinny jeans on,
Yeah, I'm not doing none of that.
sagging.
I'm not
It's
doing none of
like,
that either.
dude, I can't even say it because we got mothers on the show.
Thank
But
you.
you hanging low, so you might need a cup. You don't need to have them little things on. Get you some regular
The
pants
fit.
and dress your age
But
appropriate. I can understand a hat, and I wear a lot of jogging pants, but I like to dress. I like to show a sense of class and decorum, more or less.
what does dressing age appropriately mean?
I think you
Because
you know
I rock tennis shoes and
no problem with
jeans,
that. But it's
t-shirt.
some
Like
people
I could pull
you
it
wearing
all
skinny
off.
jeans. You wearing skinny jeans with cut up little holes in them, showing your
Okay,
knees and
Nah,
you got me
thighs.
there. I'm
I
not
got
doing that.
one pair a couple years ago because my son was wanting me to get some. I probably wore them like once or twice. I don't like them. It don't feel right. Like I understand what you mean, and I'm not combating it. But I was just kind of looking at
Right,
what you thought about it because like for me, I just don't feel comfortable wearing certain things anymore, and I
right.
don't
You gotta be
know.
comfortable.
You know what I mean? Like I don't really want to wear skinny jeans.
Right.
Not
Because if
not
I
too
could dress
skinny.
every day, I would be dressed like Ghost on Power. That's me.
But look, let's be honest. I mean, I ain't trying to be funny, but Ezekiel ain't wearing no skinny jeans. So, at the end of the day, I got it, but when we start talking about these elders, we ain't got to worry about elders modeling skinny jeans for the younger generation.
Yeah.
So, I got the whole dress age appropriate thing. And I'm agreeing with that because you're not going to ever catch me in those skinny jeans. And sure, I wear sneakers, I wear shorts, I wear t-shirts and things
Yeah.
of that nature. These are comfortable. But at the end of the day, that's not I don't care how old you are, that's age appropriate. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
Um, what happened? You're in the
I
chats. I know it.
I'm sorry. I saw Miss Michelle just
Well, I'm
typed
I'm I'm
in.
I'm I'm working my way down. I want to go back to what you
Mm.
said about the
Okay,
video game because I think this is key. I think this is a good perspective. What do you guys think about this one?
I gotta push back only
Nope, not
because
at
I'm
all.
in. Yeah, I gotta push back, man. Only I'm a part of the gaming community. Like we gets it in.
But you're
Um,
also over the age of 40. Now, what about
okay,
14, 13, whatever?
Well,
Nope.
that
look, come on now. We played Grand Theft Auto, and then they make us go steal cars.
Wile E. Coyote died every episode.
What?
every episode
We saw it. Like we
he should
wasn't, but
sue Acme.
Well,
we knew the difference between fact and fiction. Like
right.
we
So
knew what was real and what wasn't.
I
Like
don't think
we
that
knew
has
the games
anything.
were games. Like no matter what.
Yeah, you knew it was a game.
Yeah, we never tried to mix the two together.
And I,
But
Well,
I was never into the shoot 'em up type games. I was always into either the fighting scene games or the first person, let's travel the world and do some quest type games. Like my favorite game is Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3. I did not think that I was going to get attacked by Wolverine when I turned the PlayStation on. You understand what I'm
see,
saying? Like I knew it was a game. I'm just playing with my favorite characters wrecking shop.
and in the same vein, I grew up in an environment where we had shotguns at the front door, at the back door, at the side door, guns under the couch, and you knew they were there, but you knew not to touch 'em. You knew, hey, that ain't for you.
but
Walk
could
right
that be a
past.
part of
But
your
see, here's another
upbringing
thing that I've
too?
noticed
Right.
too. Here's another thing that I've noticed too. We used to play outside
Mm,
a
Yeah.
lot. Like
well,
the only way you knew where everybody was is when you saw everybody's bike in somebody's yard. That's where
Yeah.
you knew where everybody was. Now everything is in a handheld. So that's a big difference too. Like we rode our bikes everywhere. We played at the park. We went to the zoo. You know what I'm saying? We did all of those things because we really didn't have that much technology in front of us to consume us the way that it has.
Yeah.
I
We
love it.
built resilience by going out. I mean, we were out exploring. We were out learning about life. I remember I used to be all my mom and I used to be all the way across town, like gone for
Right.
hours. I ain't
Yeah.
even come home. Like man, and wouldn't even come home. Like I would go out. Me and my friend, we go find some Coke bottles, turn them in for 10 cents, get enough, go to some trash cans. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, we got $2, bro. We go on the food line, and bro, we got a drink, we
We
got
had the penny candy
chips, we got
store.
cookies.
Yeah.
Like,
We
We had
had
the
the
penny
penny
candy
candy.
store.
We did.
yeah,
We would do
yeah, bro.
that and
We
we would
all over
gather
the
up
city
like,
though.
yeah,
All over the
yeah.
city. Like it wasn't nothing. Like it's just what it was. Like we stayed active. You know what I mean? We stayed busy, we stayed curious, and I think that helped us.
So, in other words, what I'm hearing you say is that through your parents, you were given the opportunity to explore, and through exploration, that built resiliency. But also going back, the parents respected their parents then as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, somewhat. I think some parents didn't necessarily get along, but they knew that at the end of the day, if the kids don't get along, I knew if I came home crying about Bobby around the corner that knocked me upside my head to my grandmother, she was gonna tell me, "You better take your blanket blank out there and fight them till."
Yo, that happened to me for real.
Yeah, I couldn't just come home. You can, and
Do not
you
come back
knew,
until the fight is over.
Don't come
and if
back. My mom
y'all
stood
would,
there and watched. She said, "You better not
but
lose." Like no joke.
and you would be fighting today, but friends tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now the parents don't even mess with them. Don't mess with their whole family. Then they back talk the parent. They talking crazy about the other parents, and they talking. So now it's a splintered community, and we no longer together.
Oh,
You
Oh
know,
Charlene
man, I
threw me
agree
under
with
the
that.
bus.
I definitely
uh,
agree with that. But now I'll tell y'all about this story later. Offset. Offset.
That girl beat
Somebody
you up?
told me.
No, really? Play no
Somebody said
girl. What's
something
wrong
to
with
me
you?
a long time ago. Don't be doing that. Somebody said something to me a long time ago, and they said that we really don't have a black community. We just have a bunch of black people that live next door to each other.
That's true.
Mm,
I would agree.
mm. Wow.
Because we had a black community.
Yeah.
Like my grandma owned the block, literally. Auntie Sugar, you came to her with anything, she had you. But she knew, hey, those are my grandkids. Watch over them.
See, and my grandmother, we lived on the corner, and when I got up in the morning to shovel our snow, my grandmother made sure go shovel Miss Johnson's snow. She ain't got no grandkids. Go shovel Mr. Clark's snow. And I'm like, what? And then so it's automatically I knew to take care of the elders in the neighborhood from my grandmother.
Mm.
And
Forgot about that.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thank you guys for joining us this evening. We definitely greatly appreciate you. Hey, if this is your first time, look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You see the emblem. Go ahead and click on the emblem and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll know every time that we're doing these conversations every night, Friday, 8 p.m. And there are others that are sprinkled in throughout a couple of Saturdays as well. Hey, listen, look at this. Joe, good to see you, my friend. What's going on, Yolanda Shaw? Welcome to the show. That's my cousin, y'all. Just
they
want
got to hit that like button too.
Gotta hit that like button. Gotta hit the like
Yeah.
button. Gotta leave a comment. We
Helps the
definitely love your
algorithm.
comments. Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, we're really just getting started in this thing. Respect must be given as well, not just demanded. I remember my fifth grade teacher refusing to call us girls and boys. She said she called us what we are growing into, young men and women.
I
Agree or
agree.
disagree?
I agree because my fifth grade teacher, what he called us is brother and sister. So when you came in, he called you brother Roland, brother whatever. Even his pedals had names. They was brother Leroy and brother such and such. But he addressed you as such so that when you looked at yourself, you didn't look in the mirror. You didn't look at your other person in the classroom, and you couldn't call them, oh nigga, this, that, and the other. No, that's your brother. So when you see your brother, you don't want to fight your brother. You don't want to kill your brother. And I'm
Good
from
point.
Murder Capital, so yeah.
That's a good point. That's a
I
good
think
point.
that's the level of respect that these kids are actually asking for. Just bare minimum respect. That's it.
And I definitely agree that that's the thing. Like we need to ensure that respect goes both ways, right? But again, when you have stuff like social media and everybody want to clap back,
Oh
right?
my God,
Um,
social media is so trash.
It ain't social media.
Ah.
We can't
yeah,
blame the gun. We can't blame social media. We gotta blame the people behind the
Okay,
gun,
the
people
people on
behind the
social
social
media are
media,
so trash.
the people in your FYP. Them people not on my timeline.
See, I
I
think
listen,
it's
man. I told you I deactivated
I
my
see them,
my.
I scroll them. When they get too bad, bruh, I don't necessarily unfriend them. I just unfollow them so you don't see their stuff. That's what I do. I ain't got time for all that trash on my timeline.
I feel you.
I'm
I do
moving to
that
bigger and
too.
better things. So I don't see all of it. But I mean, she had a good point. You know what I mean? Like the old folks on there clapping back and they friends with their daughters and sons on social media.
well, I've
So
seen that
when
as
you on
well.
there, you
Ooh.
seeing mama clap back on people and you 17 and 18, like what
and
are you modeling as a parent, as an elder? I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, how many videos a day do we see of Karen showing her behind somewhere or asking for
Mm.
the manager in Target? Like we see it all the time.
but
Yo,
Hey,
so
they most of them mamas, like they be teachers and everything, lawyers, like bruh, like,
Asking for the manager at Target.
you know what
So Joe makes a very interesting point here. He says, I think the violence is due to dad deprivation. Dad and rich children are more socially fluent, psychologically stable, and they understand healthy boundaries.
Oh my
Gentlemen, your
God, you
thoughts?
do not want me to go down this
I
rabbit
think
hole.
that is a multifaceted conversation because it starts with, and because you know me, Dwayne, and I think that everything that happens in my house is my fault. No matter what it is, it's under my roof. It's my responsibility to get it right. And I think more men have to have the attitude that even if you aren't in your kid's house, you need to be an integral part of their lives and their upbringing, their discipline, and everything, and not just a check, not just a person to come and discipline, but fathers aren't just donors. And I think that's what we've become, sperm donors. And then when we don't get along with the mother, we don't get along with the kid. We don't care nothing for the kid. But when you show love for the kid, when not just buying them stuff, but spending actual time where they can get to know you, you can get to know them, that develops a child that grows into a productive adult.
Hmm. I like it.
Roland, I appreciate that comment, but I'm going to have to push back.
Push.
And I'm going to push back as a former employee of the Child Protective Services, as a former employee of the Child Study Institute, as a former employee of the Juvenile Justice Center, and as a former employee of the child support system as a whole. I used to move files between them, the municipal court, and the family court. Your scenario is the scenario that's been painted all over social media. The scenario that's real is that a lot of these dudes really want to be in their kids' lives. They really do. The problem is the women nowadays are using these kids as bargaining chips and control mechanisms to get some change out of them because they allowed a man to sleep with them that didn't want them. And some bad happened. And he's let it be known, I didn't want this child, but I want to take care of it. No, you're going to be with me. No, I don't want to be with you. I want to take care of my child. Okay, I'm going to run you through the ringer until you decide to be with me. I used to see it all the time. And this is as an employee of the system. So I have to push back. There are men out there who are breaking their necks to be in their child's lives. There are men out there who are paying thousands of dollars in child support and still doing for their child outside of that just to be in that child's life. So I have to push back on that narrative because that's the narrative that's been being pushed, and that's not factually true.
I think it's not factual to all. That's why you can say some of, because I was one of those people who, when I my first wife, when we divorced, she had one of my children, one of my three girls, and the older two were living with me. I'm paying her $1,000 a month for one kid, and even if she's getting money and everything, she did zero for the other two. I didn't put her down. I had to make do, because what I can't do is go back and say I wish I woulda, coulda, and all that other stuff. I have to do my part, and sometimes it gets frustrating when you're dealing with somebody who's immature, and both of you were immature at one time, and y'all just was sitting up there thinking about how I can make one or the other feel good, and boom, kids happen. Now I got responsibility, and now you're expecting immature people to make mature decisions, and that doesn't happen. And when she has control over the child because she provides domicile, now, yes, she tends to use that some tend to use that child as a bargaining chip.
Most.
I won't say most because I don't have
I
numbers.
will, because I worked in the system and I've seen it.
Yeah,
I
so
will.
and when they do that, when they use them as bargaining chips, it does, and the system is geared to help them also. So we understand that. But that's why we have to think beforehand. We can't go back and change it before you bust. No, you got to think, am I willing to make this person my wife? See, we don't think like that. We just think about a happy time. Oh, she done spread eagle and I can have a good time. No, we got to think before that.
Well, let me ask this. Let me inject this because I like where you guys are going. These let's set example that you guys are talking about. These dudes now are older, and those children are now adults. So now these dudes who, whether they could not have been or they just chose not to be in the father's life, how does that influence the grandchild? How does that influence the, and we're talking about, the respect for elders, right? When you look at how that is paid forward, what type of respect does that child have for their parent, their father, or the grandchild have for their father? How does that work?
You just keep rolling downhill.
Well, it depends, because speaking from a grandfather of
Rolling
a
down the hill.
situation that came from that, I always make sure, no matter what, my kids respect their mother, and the kids got to respect adults, period. So I make sure I don't just buy kids stuff. I spend time. Anybody know me? Look on my pages. I spend time with my babies. Oh, grandkids and the whole nine. I used to like. I was one who I would go up to the school because I ain't got no job. I'm up at the school. I'm up there for lunch. Taking up trash and going and making sure because there are not a lot of men, especially black men, within the school system that are positive. So I made sure I was there making sure my grandkids ain't the ones talking crazy in line and such. But I made sure that the respect level was like if I seen a little kid, I made sure they knew me. And then I say, hey, Miss Tisdale said this. Come on now, make it happen.
Yeah. What say you, Uncle Junior?
And I don't know. I was just listening, and then I just got lost in everything he was just saying. I was just focused, man. I don't. I mean, I work like I said. I work in the school system, so I see it all the time. Man. Like I, I see it all the time. I agree with everything that's been said here, man. There's both sides of it. There's some, and then there's all. There's a yeah. I get it, man. Like it's hard though. You know what I mean? I think that, like I said before, like it can roll downhill. You know what I mean? If the grandfather is doing it, like I'm a grandfather. I'm 47. Like I can see myself. Like I can't be out there like clap backing on people on social media. Like my 27-year-old son is on Facebook with me. You know what I mean? And he has two kids. So like I have to model or at least be a model, not a negative one. At least do positive things on social media because my son is on social media. Like we got four generations. Like my mom is on social media. You know what I mean? So my mom ain't on social media clap backing at people and posting twerk videos and stuff like that. At least I ain't seen them. So then
Oh, shit.
let me know if you are. Unfollow me if you are. But just saying. But yeah, man. Like I mean, if you see your grandma on social media twerking or your grandfather on social media doing, some inappropriate things, like I mean, unless you shield him from, I mean, kids still want to see their grandfather. So I mean,
And I
you,
follow my granddaughters that are
mhm,
on Snapchat. I don't even like
yeah,
Snapchat. I
yeah,
follow them to
me
make
too.
sure they're not doing nothing crazy. Now my daughter, she grown. One of my daughters, when she was doing all her crazy mess on Facebook and stuff,
Yeah,
I cut her off. I ain't following that mess. Nope. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to see it. I mean,
should we cut those people off? So if we all right, so this is a real question. We as men, we have family members. What if we have family members who are on social media, right? And we're men in the family. We have younger cousins, nieces, whatever, aunts, whoever in the family. You know what I mean? And they're on the social media, misrepresenting our name or our family blood. You know what I mean? How do you guys handle? Do you guys, not follow them anymore? Do you guys mention or say something to it? And this kind of falls into the respect, but I'm kind of speaking specifically for young women right now because I feel like we all may have a niece or you know what I mean, some younger female at the next level.
but for me, I have a conversation first. And if they choose to continue with what I consider disrespect, I cut it off to where I don't, like you said before, you can make it on Facebook to where you don't see their stuff. You're still connected, but you don't see it because I don't want to
Yeah.
see it. So that's what I do.
I would do the
Yeah,
same thing, but I wouldn't come at her like I'm attacking her. I would just let her know, like, hey, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Do you know what your last name means?
Right.
Are you serious? Do you know who we're connected to? Why would you do this? Come on,
Mhm.
man. You know better. I would come at it like that. I wouldn't come at her like she was a horrible person. I would just come at her like a smart person who made a dumb decision.
Right.
I got it.
See, I think I handle it differently. I would. So if we're talking about my niece, and I have five nieces, beautiful, beautiful young ladies. Um, I would talk with my sister first, right? Just to see whether she's aware of what's going on, things of that nature, because I want to make sure that I keep my sister in the loop. Um, and then if, based upon the conversation that we have, if she would like me to talk to them, then by all means I will. But then when I am around them, one of the things that I do is I make sure that I love on them. I make sure that I talk to them, I kiss them on the forehead, I tell them, give them positive, uplifting stuff, right? Because I want them to understand that I see you, but I see you. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times with the younger generation, they really want to know that we care. Like I think Roland, you said that earlier. They really want to know that we care. So as an uncle, well, Uncle Junior, as an uncle, right? But as an uncle, my job is to be a healthy support system for my sister so that they can understand, even if they don't have a relationship with their dad, they still can have a relationship with me, right? So I'm connected with my son, my daughter, and my grandson. He'll be 4 this year, right? So he don't have a social media account yet, but once he gets one, trust and believe, I'm requesting, right? Because I want to see what that little guy's up to. But I think from our perspective, if it's not my child, then I'm not going to have the difficult conversation. I'm gonna have the conversation with my sibling. And then in having that conversation with my sibling, hopefully I can help them have that necessary conversation with their child. But for me, the key is always respecting the parent. And that way we can move forward. Speaking of moving forward, again, we want to make sure that we're driving down the street right here. So what I would like to do, because we talked about a lot of things so far, and we kind of talked about observations leading up to this point. Well, I want to start looking at reflection, right? So let's reflect and talk about what the elders have been to you growing up. Whether we're talking early childhood development, whether we're talking adolescent years or your young adult years.
Gentlemen, if you don't mind, can I go first?
By all means.
All right. And I'm gonna say because I don't think I'm gonna have too much to say. Um, my mom's my mom never knew her father. My Her mom died when she was in elementary school. My father's father died when I think he was a teenager. So I only knew one grandparent, and that was my biological grandmother. And then she had remarried. And she was married to Pa, so that was the only grandfather that I knew. And then he died, you know what I mean, when I was, I think, in my early 20s and stuff like that. So, like, for me growing up, there was no elders around. I didn't have any. My uncles were out doing what they were doing on my mom's side. My uncles on my dad's side had both died before I graduated high school. So I didn't have any men other than my father for the most part in my life, for about, early on. And my dad was in my life heavily. He was a preacher, what I mean, but my dad also struggled with substance abuse later on. But early on, he, we was into church all the time, so we had a good foundation and stuff like this. But once he left and once I went, there was no other men around. And then because my dad, we had a couple of guys that was around when we were young, couple of, his brother, and I think maybe one other uncle. But because we were so involved into the church and stuff like this, I think our dad didn't really want us around those people because they were doing bad stuff. So yeah, so that was it for my growing up. After, like I said, and there ain't too much for after that because everybody died. So the only elder I really had in my life was my father up until end up at the 2018. So
Chris?
I kind of wish I would have spent more time with my elders. Like, I really, really do. Like, I had my godfather. He was the neighborhood mechanic. He could literally fix anything on four wheels and anything in your house. I watched this man replace an entire hot water tank by himself. He was the neighborhood everything. And then I had my uncles who owned a funeral parlor, but they were always clean. Like, they were always dressed to the, you know what I'm saying, some type of fragrance on. You understand what I'm saying? They were Kevin Samuels before you knew what a Kevin Samuels was. I wish I would have clung to them. They were all hard workers, but they all knew how to move as a quote unquote man, not just a man, an upstanding man at that. I wish I would have clung to them a whole lot more. We grew apart in my older years, but I wish when I was young, like my uncle used to take us to the zoo, and then he used to be a janitor at the local gym up the street. So we had all access to that. So I could go hoop, or I can go play this computer game on this computer with a floppy disk drive. You understand what I'm saying? I wish I would have clung to that.
You done, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. I think for me, I had probably three sets. I had my mother's side, which were pimps, hustlers, drug dealers, and killers. I had my father's side, which they were educated men who didn't necessarily spend time. And then I had, because I played sports, I had coaches that showed attention and took time out. And I spent more time with my mom's side, and then when I played sports with them, and then I kind of, because of my rougher upbringing, I looked down on my father's side, who were educated and had, well to do and everything, because I'm looking at my situation and their situation, and I guess I was kind of jealous. I was jealous of what they had, my cousins on that side had, and then but I'm looking at how I grew up. So when it comes to the my coaches and stuff like that, spending time with them actually pouring into me, it was beneficial because I knew they would say stick to the books. They would say stick, they push school and they push education and all of this. Whereas when I go home and I'm living amongst my uncles and cousins and they doing all this crazy mess, I knew to respect what my grandmother said, but I also watched what they did. So I'm like, okay, So I knew, and then growing up, I was like, okay, I'm in this, but because I spend so much time in school and in the books, I'm not like them. So I knew I wanted better than that. This is easy, but I want it better.
Yeah, see, you know what? I can see all of that. Excuse me. I believe, and that's why I kind of showed everybody's responses because I think my response is a combination of everything that everybody said, especially Yolanda, because she is part of my family. I had the same view that she had. Like for me, I never wanted to disappoint any of my elders. Period. And I think you guys heard me talk about the Uncle Brigade. Like I have some amazing uncles, and one of them always kept me out of trouble. One of them always tried to teach me stuff, especially when it came down to people, women of the opposite sex and one women of the opposite sex. I just say that women teach me women, period. And then one, he showed me something totally different because he was married, he was a hardworking man, and he took care of his family. That was his thing. So when I looked at it, uncles in my life were significant, but then you have my grandfather. Like I think my grandfather was just an awesome dude. Like he was that, like he was the man. That's what we used to call him. Like he was the man. Like he would sit out. Like his favorite thing was watching Perry Mason and watching the Atlanta Braves play baseball. So if those two things were on TV, it didn't matter what you thought you was going to look at. We looking at Perry Mason and we're going to watch the Atlanta Braves play baseball. That's just it. But it wasn't that. I would sit and watch Perry Mason. I didn't know nothing about no Perry Mason. Didn't even know what they were talking about. But because my granddad was watching it, I was watching it. And I think when it comes down to stuff like that, there was a lot I just gained by being in their presence. Now, mind you, I'm still young, so my attention span is like that. So I may sit and watch Perry Mason with him for a minute, but then I'm going to do something else, then I'm coming back. So when I look at elders from my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, and I have some amazing aunts. I don't want to leave them out, but all of them, like I think the elders in my family, they were just amazing. Everyone was significant in their own right, and everybody brought something different to my life. And just like Yolanda said, like they all reside within me in some shape, form, or fashion. So it's something significant I got from every last one of them. And so for me, I just thought it was amazing when I reflect back on the elders and what they meant to me, just like everybody in the chats is saying right here. So yeah, thank you guys for sharing that, Joel. I don't know why one of your messages, I just approved it. I don't know why it was hidden. But it's some amazing points that are being made here. And I think as we look at them, I think we can all resonate with everything that they're saying. There was etiquette. That's what was wrong, Chris. Everything good?
He
Now
probably
you,
laughing at Joel's comment too, like me.
oh, okay.
'Cause I
Yeah.
hadn't seen it until you said something. Then I looked over.
Well, it was hidden. It was hidden for a minute. I don't know why. Um, but when you look at it, they taught everything from etiquette, how to behave. I've seen them, address like my cousins or whatever, wearing dresses, teaching them how to sit, how to act in public, all that other great stuff. And I think that's one of the things that we're missing when it comes down to, what's going on in this society. Moving forward, though, what roles, and I'm almost certain, I think Roland's transitioning on us real quick. I'm gonna mute you on one, Roland, and bring you in. Okay. I think this is important because we've already addressed what we've seen, what our observations were. We've addressed um we've addressed what they meant to us, growing up, so forth and so on. So with that being said, I don't know what happened. Okay, so with that being said, what role should they play in today's society?
The only role that I can think of, and that's me speaking to the younger fellas, the only role that the elders can play is the role of somebody that should be shown some type of respect, because they don't respect us because we haven't shown them that we've earned it. That would be it. How they go about that, I honestly don't know. I haven't gotten that deep into it. But from what they tell me is like they really don't see anything to respect when they look up. They see more they see more to respect on their handheld than they do in their real life. For real.
Hmm.
I don't know how you compete with the internet, but
Yeah.
that'd be where it would start. We just have to figure out we have to figure out what we have to figure out what's necessary for us to be respected. We got to talk to them and talk to them. So I guess the role that the elder should play is facilitator.
Hmm.
They should be a facilitator, not an enabler, a facilitator.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
But
Oh, go ahead.
when
Hmm.
there's a way to do it, you can lead without being a bully.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Most people, when they hear lead, they automatically go authoritative instead of saying, let me figure out what I can do to get this kid to actually show his best self and then lead from there. So I guess yeah, that's where I would start.
I like it.
I think that one of the roles they can play is um, a mentor or a model. If you can't be a mentor, I mean, if you volunteer for a mentor, you become part of a mentor program. Then what you can do is, not saying that that's forced, but if you volunteer and then you're in a school system or something like that, that's a way to you to share and pass on knowledge or information. I think that being a role model, not even a role model, yeah, being a role model, but if you take off the word role and just be a model, be a positive model of what, you know, dudes should have. I don't want to say emulate them, but I do want to say at least, you know what I mean, elderly, I think they should be a model. And I think that they should have something. I think that they should be able to have some experiences that they have benefited from, some things that they have done, and the information that they have acquired, and be able to be willing to pass that information down. So I think that they should be models, and I think that they should start passing down the information and experiences that they have. And if you can't pass it down, I think you need to be able to create a way or a space to be able to get the information down to the next generation. Kind of like this podcast, Empowering Perspective podcast, is for not only us, but it's also for the next generation. Like, you can look at this podcast and you can look at the topics and you can get different experiences from different people over here talking, and that information can be passed down. Like Chris talked about the technology piece with the younger people. Like, this is a way for us as some of the elders and older people to connect with some of the youth. You know what I mean? In platforms and different things like this. So, like I said, be a role model and be willing to pass along information that is beneficial to the next generation's success.
I th-
I like it.
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay. I think also, along with what Chris and Uncle Junior said, we have to show that this generation is okay with learning something new, with you being yourself, because a lot of times we don't want to accept them for who they are. So we need to accept them for who they are, but allow them to learn why we are who we are as well, because that'll teach them why we say what we say, why we think what we think, and not just push it off on them, but allow them to learn why we do what we do and why we say what we say.
You know, I love what you guys are saying, and I'm agreeing. I don't disagree with anything that has been said so far. I think what I would add to, because I think it's it's a couple of things when it comes down to the role. And I'm gonna go back to my old army days, right? I'm gonna go back to the be no do concept, right? I think first and foremost, elders must be, right? They need to be the individuals that the younger generation can look up to. I think that's a good starting point. I think Uncle Junior, you were starting to use the word emulate. I'm going to bring that word back to the table because I think we need elders in our community that the younger generation would want to emulate. That's first and foremost. So as the older generation, what we should be doing, we should be presenting ourselves in such a way that our character leads from the forefront. Like we should be stand up men and women to where the younger generation look and say, "Hey, I want to be just like Uncle Junior. I want to be just like Chris from across the table. I want to be just like rolling down the street." Why? Because these are individuals of good character. They actually do what they say. That's the next piece, right? They do what they say, but what they say actually comes from their heart and they're honest with us. That's another piece. I think the older generation, we got to be honest. We can't you know, we can't extend information to them as though we never made mistakes when we were younger. I think that's key, right? That's how you open the door to transparency, and that in turn gives them the opportunity to actually. I'm gonna bring the word trust to the table, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. But it makes us trustworthy, right? So we got to be honest up front. We didn't do everything right growing up. Let's just be honest. We didn't do everything right as young adults. So we got to present information not from the perspective of perfection, but from the perspective of progression. We progress from the young knucklehead heads that we used to be. Um, we got to continue to educate ourselves as well. You said it earlier, Chris and Uncle Junior. Listen, those cellular devices, they're getting information just like that, and they're getting smarter faster. So what took us 30, 35 years to figure out, they're figuring out at age 25, 26, right? So we need to understand that, hey, you have to be in a position to where you continue to grow and learn, not just for the sake of saying, I grew and I learned, but for the sake of giving back to someone else. You need to invest, right? You need to invest in someone else. I think Uncle June, you mentioned being a mentor. Absolutely. Get out there and do something to show that you're helping them. You want to see them succeed. And in my opinion, I know that was a little long just now, but I want to make sure I say that because I think that is the key that actually helps them to understand that we're not trying to fight against you. We're not your enemy. We're really here to help you. We want you to succeed because, the prophet Whitney Houston said it. I believe the children are our future. So
Not the prophet.
the prophetess. Yes. Let me stop. I'm joking. What's up, Walter? Good to see you, brother.
Whoa,
Welcome to
whoa,
the
my
show.
God.
Absolutely. Joel said maturity is greater than chronology. I always messed that word up, man. I'm sorry. And he's right. It's not about how long you've existed in this or on this earth. It's how mature you are, and I think that's key. So great points everybody brought to the table. Now, I want to set the conditions for this one because I've mentioned it before, and I want to bring it back to the table. I do not. I don't think I will ever forget on social media there was a video where a young lady literally fought her grandmother because of something that she said about her mother. So, with that being said, what are some of the challenges associated with being an elder in today's society?
Whew.
I guess staying in shape would be one. No, let me stop. I'm just joking. Uh,
Wow.
but
Depend on the
Wow.
elder.
no, that's just a
Wow.
joke. But I think you gotta spend that had to come from a toxic relationship between mother and daughter first, in order for her to even want to lift a hand towards her grandmother. So you know that the dynamic between mother and daughter is already one that isn't one that you would want replicated in your family. So I think that when you have, like myself, had children young and then grandchildren young, and when you don't find the time to continue to raise them, like they say, if you spoil your kids, you'll raise your grandkids. And when you find time to actually spend time with both and raise your kids to where they can raise their kids, then the level of respect goes a long way. And when you get past that, there's nothing really you can do about it on that from the outside looking in.
I love it.
Hmm. Honestly, one of the biggest challenges of being an elder in our society is the lack of respect that we've earned. That's
Mm.
one of the biggest challenges. And like I said previously, I don't know. I don't know what it would take to fix that. I really don't. And to speak to your point, Uncle, not Uncle Junior, Coach, when you were talking about the video of the woman putting hands on her, listen, there was a story in my city where one of the parents of the kids who was getting bullied in school, dressed up as a kid, got into the building and whooped the kids.
Mm.
And she passed for one of the high schoolers. She went in there and mollywopped all of them. So, like, I guess I'll leave it there. The biggest challenge that we face is the fact that we haven't done enough to earn the respect of the youth.
Mm.
We really haven't. We're arguing on social media just like they are. We're going back and forth in this man versus woman argument just like they are. They look at us as peers instead of adults and elders. That's really what it is. And I'm gonna just leave it at
Mm.
that.
It sounds like what you're saying is that some of us have an identity crisis.
There are too many people out here living off the popularity of their high school life. Way too many. And it's trickling down into their children.
Mm.
I think one of the challenges associated with being an elder in today's society is not knowing how to communicate. Um, with technology, as Chris brought up earlier, I think we want to sometimes, and I think we talked about it with our parents and our older generations too, is how they're stuck and they're not trying to come onto this new stuff. Like, I mean, think about how many people had grandparents who took forever to buy a microwave because they thought that something was wrong with it. Um, so I think that sometimes, like Chris saying, is like they don't respect us. But I think part of that is that we don't necessarily know how to communicate with the younger generation. And I think sometimes it's vice versa. Whereas we are used to, picking up the phone and calling and having conversation with people. Well, they want to text. So how do we bridge that gap to whereas we both can communicate and have effective communication So I think that that's part of the challenge right there, is just being able to communicate effectively with them. If we can't communicate effectively with them, then we can't impart wisdom, give them anything. Like, and I'm not saying that, back in the day it was like, you do what I say and blah blah blah, but it's like now, like, can we really expect that for kids to just do exactly, younger people to do exactly what we want to say? Like, I think we talked before the show, it's like they want to know why, so the communication from the way that we were raised to the way that the younger generation wants to be communicated with is different. So I think part of the challenge is the communication, and how do we bridge that gap so we can have effective communication between the elders and the younger people. So like I said, for me, I think that's a huge challenge, because I got three sons and they're on their phone and I don't always know how to communicate with them. And to, earlier, like, I don't have my dad to call and ask him, how do I communicate? Because even if I did ask him, he didn't have a phone when he was my age. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So he may would have had some challenges as well. So, and would he be able to, accurately use the technology? So I don't know. I think, like I said, big challenge is just the ability to communicate effectively.
Man,
Yeah,
listen. No, go ahead.
I think when it comes to stuff like that, that's a way I'm learning how to communicate with my grandchildren because I don't know nothing about no doggone TikTok. But then I that's where they are. So since they're there, I go ahead and hey, I'm talking TikTok language. I'm asking questions, and they run their mouths. So now I learn. I learn what they like, what they do, what they dislike. They may say, Papa, you ain't cool." I'm like, "Oh, I ain't trying to be cool." But what I'm doing is I'm trying to establish a bond between them somehow because that's something we can connect on. Because if I try to get them to connect on something I like, they not gonna like it. But
Mm-mm.
they
And
like
that's
that
facts.
TikTok doing all those little stupid dances.
And that's
But you
facts,
know,
man. That's super facts. Like that's how I talk to all of my nieces and nephews. It's through Snapchat. You know what I mean? And I think that we, as the adults, sometimes we expect the children or the younger generation to get on our level. And then now I'm reflecting back to when, Roland talks about he's always with his grandkids and stuff like that. I remember when my kids were young, I was on the ground playing cards with them. I wasn't expecting them to go and run 2 miles with me at 3 years old. No, I went down to their level because I understood as an adult, I need to get on their level in order to make that connection. So, yeah, to Roland's point, I'm just piggybacking off of that, man. Absolutely, brother.
No, you're good. You're good. And I'm agreeing with you. I'm going to offer a different, it's not a different, it's more an extension of the same perspective. Um I think we got to get to the point to where and I like the word rolling used because I was thinking connecting with them. I think connecting comes through exchange, right? Chris, you and I talk about this all the time, right? The law of reciprocity or equivalent exchange, right? We have to get to the point of exchanging. Do what they just said. Get down there, learn their language, learn what they're into, learn their likes, learn their dislikes. But then you also got to share some things about you as well. Invite them into your world so that they can see what it's like to be a dad, see what it's like to be a granddad. See, share with them some of the struggles that you've been through, right, growing up, so that that can serve as a sounding board for them when it comes down to making decisions. You guys had a great conversation earlier talking about some of the things that we may not have known, and or a young lady may not have known, and it ended up in a particular situation, an unwanted situation in the end, especially when the young man did not want to participate. Well, in sharing this information, this is how you help them to understand that you don't want to be in that. It's not, we don't use that to downplay anyone else. We're only using it to sharpen the hearts and minds of the younger generation. But you're not going to get to that point until you first get on their level and understand what they're like, what they're into. You know what I'm saying? And let me talk about my cousin real quick, because when I say that she is heavily involved in her kid's life, man, I don't think she has any free moments in her life. Like, she's always going to soccer games. She's always going to swim meets, whatever the case may be. Like, she is heavily invested. But I'm also sure that she shares aspects of her life with them as well, so that when they ask those difficult questions, they get honest answers. So I think that's an important thing to consider it's not just the elders just teaching and drilling and grilling and correcting. No, it's not. It's more than that. It's an exchange. You understand what's going on in their life, and then you share some of your life stories with them. If they just went through a bad relationship, right, and they're upset, you listen to them, you nurture, and then you share some things about your life when you went through a bad relationship right around their age. So now they realize it wasn't just me. Mom and dad had the same experience as well. Well, what did you do to get over it, dad? What did you do to get over it, mom? Now you're getting into that fair exchange, and now you're considered to be a trusted advisor in that child's life. Well, the same thing happens for grandparents, because guess who they really want to talk to? Because parents sometimes are rough and rugged and stern, but grandmamas and granddaddies, they let them get away with murder. Oh, go do this, go do that. Don't worry about it. I'll fix it later. Let them tear that up. I ain't touched that thing in years anyway. Well, when they sit down, because when they get mad at the parents, they want to go talk to the grandparents, because the grandparents give them space without judgment, right? So that's the key. And so when the grandparents talk to them, well, your mom don't mean no harm, your daddy don't mean harm. Only thing they're trying to do is help you be better than what they were when they were growing up. So I think that exchange is the key, and that gets after the connection piece that you guys were talking about. So great point. And I appreciate you guys for bringing that to the table. Now, I made a promise to everybody over the past couple of weeks. I said I'm going to give away something, and I'm not telling you what it is. However, everybody is probably waiting on me to ask the question here, but I'm not going to ask the question here. I'm going to put it in the chat. So you got to go to that link, click on that link, fill out the question. It's only like 5 questions. They're really easy, really. So answer the question. The first person to answer the question would be the person that gets the giveaway. So I'm having my screen up over here and I'm looking. As soon as I see the number 1, I'm clicking and I know who it is. So just so that you know. All right. So that being said, continuing with this conversation, because I think this is something to understand. We talked about respect earlier, right? What do you say to those individuals who believe that when it comes down to the elders, you know, respect should be earned? They haven't done anything significant for me. Why should I respect them?
You being old does not garner respect.
Mm.
I'm gonna just put that out there. You being old and being on this planet for all of these years, that does not mean that you are respected. Stop trying to use that to shame these boys when they're going through something. You should listen to me because I'm some years old. And look at what you're doing. You're sitting here talking to me.
Mm.
Your age means nothing when it comes to being an elder. And that's what I hear from the younger cats. I don't care how old you are. They care about what you're doing. And if what you're doing is a positive thing, or if what you're doing is making money, that's really what it is. If it's making money and it's gaining status, they want to hear from you. But if you're just an old dude yapping, they ain't paying no attention to you. You're just an old dude yapping who ain't doing nothing.
I think I respect everybody until they no longer earn my respect. So when it comes to older people, like Coach or somebody said something earlier, somebody somebody dropped something on the floor, right? Me at 47, if I see the person is a little long in the tooth, I'll go over there and I'll pick it up, because whatever. But I think that respect should be given regardless, until you prove that you no longer deserve my respect. So I think a little bit different. But that's me. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. I'm just saying, for me, everybody gets my respect. Coach get my respect first time I met him. When Coach come out and be like, start calling me out of my name, then now there's an issue. Now, first of all, I'm gonna run because I don't want to get beat up. And then second of all, what I mean, there's some respect that has been lost there. I may not value him as much anymore because he's disrespected me. So that's what I'm gonna go with.
But see, there's a difference in that, I think.
Let's talk it out.
From what I hear, they respect us They respect us as a person that was created by the same divine creator that created them. That's how they respect us. Okay, you here, I'm here. There's what a four and there's a 1 in 4 trillion chance that we'll be okay. You're a human, I'm a human, I respect you. But the type of respect that you're talking about when they can actually tell you something, that's a whole nother level. And you have to do something to get that. You understand what I'm saying? That those are the two different levels of respect that I hear.
You pretty much saying two different types of respect.
There's a baseline, you're God's creature, I'm God's creature level of respect. And then there's the okay, but that doesn't mean anything. And that doesn't mean you can tell me what I'm doing is right or wrong if you're not doing it. Or if you're not doing something similar that can show me how to do it. If you just yapping, you just yapping.
Well, I think it's like,
That's what I'm saying.
is what you saying like a lack of respect, like based off of what I'm saying, then there's a lack of respect for what um someone maybe or maybe not have achieved. So like if you were 47, you're 50 years old and you're like, man, y'all guys need to be doing this, blah, blah, blah. But you're not doing it. Like, how can I respect your word or what you say
Right.
because or what you do because that's not how you're living your life.
That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
That's legit what it is. I respect you as a man. I respect you as an elder. You are old head out here.
But anything
But you're
come out
not
your
a
mouth is trash
right. You're not an
because you're not
OG.
living what you're saying. But
Right.
even still though, in our generation, it was a whole bunch of dudes that wasn't living what they were telling us, and we still did it. You know how many
That's
times like the
true.
drunk
But
like, come
that's
on, little boy, hey, you need to go to school. But we still did it
but
out of respect.
but you're speaking from our generation, and I'm
Yeah.
talking about them. And that's how they view respect. It's
Yeah.
different with us. We were taught different. We were taught that no matter what
I jump in
this
here.
dude has done, if he's
Go
older,
ahead, jump in.
oh, go ahead.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yep. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
we hear your cricket.
Okay. Okay, I know it may be broke up a little bit, but
Nah, I'm just kidding.
I'm I feel what you're saying, Chris, and I think when it comes to that level of respect, I think I had to learn that too because my daughter, she has a master's degree in some form of psychology or whatever, right? And so when we would be talking, I would be talking from a place of learn knowledge. She's speaking from a place of book knowledge and whatever case studies and that she's gone through. And I found myself disrespecting her level of knowledge because of her age. And I had to learn, like, hold up, she went to school talking about, and she has a master's degree. That means she's mastered her field. So I had to take a step back and
I think he just took a step back.
He
Yeah.
was right
So
on time with that one.
I know, right? So,
Good segue.
yeah, Roland, you broke up for a second, but I think I'm gonna jump in, and when you come back, I yield back to you. Um, I'm agreeing with everything, by the way, and I like where Roland went with that because I think it's important. I will speak from my perspective and my perspective only, not someone outside of me. So there's nothing that you fine gentlemen have to do to earn my respect, right? I believe it's incumbent upon me to initially respect you based upon that one thing that Chris said, right? Because you were created by somebody greater than myself. Therefore, how dare I disrespect you? If you are an elder, then as an elder, one of the things that I do believe is that you are wiser than I am. So when I come across your path, I am using these more than I'm using this because I want to hear what you have to say. So whatever you're sharing with me, I'm looking to gain something from it. Even if it comes off a little harsh. Now, this is something I had to learn. And Uncle Junior, I know you can relate to this because in the army, you did not get information that was handed to you on a silver platter with cookies, cake, and ice cream. No, you would get information and it had adjectives, adverbs, and superlatives tied to it, and probably some name calling as well. So, with that being said, you had to learn to overcome that. Well, when you go back to the older generation, that was common language to them. So for me, when I went to basic training, it wasn't that bad. I'm just being honest. I had a level of resiliency that was able to hear certain things and it didn't affect me as much. But it did not move me to the place of disrespect. And now, this is not me saying that you need to talk to your children in a stern voice and use adjectives, adverbs, and superlatives. However, what I'm saying is that I don't believe people need to earn respect. It should be automatically given based upon them being a human being. And I think that's the thing that we're missing in this society. Like, especially when you look at someone who, and I got it. Like, I'm gonna use Roland's example. Like, his daughter has a master's degree, right? By all means, I'm gonna give her respect just as a young lady, just as a person. By her, having a master's degree, I'm going to respect the fact that she have a master's degree. And when she is speaking in that field, I'm going to respect her knowledge based upon the field that she speaks in. But I won't disrespect that young lady simply because she was made by the creator. And I think, in my opinion, that's how I approach life. The thing that baffles me is that there are some people who really do believe that an older person must do something to earn their respect. Okay. So what do you do to pay respect then? If they have to earn it, then what are you paying? Because if they put a higher wage on what they're selling, since you have to earn it, then you need to be willing to pay what they're asking you for. So I think when we look at this earning respect idea, I think it's a false narrative because no one should have to earn something when it comes down to who they are, their identity, their value, because the value was instilled in them. Go back to the first episode of Functioning in Dysfunction. Their value was in the value that that person has was instilled in them by the one who created them. And because the creator created them, I should not have the option to devalue them or disrespect them or not even render simple respect. Why don't we even say good morning or hello, how you doing when we pass people in the streets anymore? Because our face are too busy stuck in this cellular device that is talking to all kind of other people that's no place around you. So I think when it comes down to
And we as men can
respect,
go to jail.
wait, what?
We as men can go to jail.
You got to make it make sense.
I can say hello to a woman wrong and
I
I'm
get what you're
harassing
saying.
her.
Gotcha.
They're scared. They're scared because there are too many consequences, especially the ones racked up against little black men. So we out here operating out of fear because we don't know what to do. As far as man to man, you're starting to see more groups like this. You're starting to see more groups of men coming together and actually talking about man stuff. I mean, you're starting to see that, but the dynamic between men and women is like, I don't know if I should say something. I don't know if I should say hi to her or not. If I say something and she don't find me attractive, I'm harassing her. If I don't say something, then there must be something wrong with me because I should be saying something to her. So it's like it's a catch-22 either way. But the fellas are starting to open up and they're starting to understand that they need a masculine figure in their lives, whether it's an uncle, their dad, a coach. They need something like that. They need somebody to teach them how to be a man because being a man being a man might be the most necessary thing that's needed in our society right now. So you're starting to see more of that. But the dynamic between us and our reflection is the one like I say all the time, that's the one I'm sick of.
I like it. I like it. Gentlemen, the hour is upon us to where it is time for you to give your final words, your advice. We're gonna let Roman go last, and hopefully he's in a place we can talk. Um, I'm just gonna go clockwise here. Uncle Junior, we're gonna start with you, then Chris, and then we're gonna go with Roland, and then I'll close it out. So the floor is yours, sir. What advice do you have for the listeners when it comes down to elders? And I mean, again, just getting back to the point to where we can respect our elders in our community.
Um, Advice for listeners when it comes to elders and respecting the community. I think at the end of the day, if you are an elder, I think that you need to display a good a good model of what elderhood, if that's a word, looks like. And I think it involves health. It involves a certain level of wellness. I think it involves continuing to build up yourself and continuing to gain in knowledge, and then find a way to give that information back, whether it be a mentor program, whether it be a podcast or a YouTube show like this. I think that that's one thing that you can do as an elderly. I think that if you're a younger person and you're listening to this, find some elders that, like Coach said, you can emulate. Find some people that are in your life or people that you can reach out to who are doing good things, who are um, leading by example, and then follow them, or ask for advice or ask for information. And then back to the elders again. I think that as the elder, I think that we have a responsibility to try to learn and try to connect with the youth, and in whatever way that looks like. If it means getting on the floor playing cars, if it means getting on Snapchat or TikTok to be around your younger generation, I think that that's one of the things that we need to do. Figure out a way to engage with the youth in a positive level and help bring them along so they don't have to go through as some of the things that we went through growing up.
I love it.
I guess my only advice for the listeners, whether you be male or female, is find a way to bridge the gap. Like Uncle Junior said, we are at a point in our lives that I'm thinking it might be one of the first times ever that the youth can actually teach us something. Maybe we need to quit looking down on them and say, let me teach me what you know, and then impart some wisdom while you learn it. We say this on the show all the time. Let go of your ego. You're not better than him just because you're older than him. And he really doesn't have to listen to you. She really doesn't have to listen to you. So how about you figure out how you can connect with them instead of furthering this disconnect between each other, because you want to do things one way because it worked back then, and they want to do things the way that things are now because it's working for them now. Find a way to meet in the middle. It shouldn't be that difficult. But that's me speaking from a utopian mindset. I'll just leave it at that.
Nothing wrong with utopia, sir. Roland, are you with us, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, you have the floor.
Oh man, learn your children, and don't always think that you're in the right. Don't always think that your way is right. Allow yourself to grow to a point to where you know that they love you and respect you, not because of your stern hand, but because of your love for them, and because your ways acknowledge you love yourself and you respect yourself. Because when you respect yourself, other people have no choice but to respect you. So when it's talking about children or younger people, when you learn them and don't treat them like they are less than you, they tend to look at you differently. So I think that treat people like people and you'll earn their respect.
I love it. These gentlemen have given you some great information. I just want to kind of share my thoughts real quick as we get ready to close this out. Um, and it's going to sound similar to what I said earlier. I think it's important that we connect as the older generation. And I'm not saying that we're the oldest. This is for our generation and the boomers, right? It's important for us to connect. I think my mother do a phenomenal job, and I'm jealous because my nieces get the best of it, right? Like she gets in there, like she listens to the music they listen to just so she can have talking pieces. I think that's a phenomenal tactic, right? We have to learn what they're doing, understand what they're doing. We got to tap in to what's happening in their lives so that we can connect with them, speak on their level, understand their struggles and their pains, and then be transparent. Share portions of your life with them. They need to understand that you're human, not superhuman. Share parts of your life with them so that they can realize, like, oh, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be me. And they accept me for who I am. And then the other part, like Uncle Junior said, and I want to go back to that. Do something to give back, right? But make sure giving back benefits them. It has to benefit the other person in the relationship. I say that because it's important. The last part I want to add is the connection, right? When you just listen, and if you had the opportunity, you've heard four parts of a conversation: functioning and dysfunction. We talked about identity, we talked about parenting, we talked about relationship, and now we're talking about elders. The connection for all three are parents. I got to stress that piece. The connection for all three, all four, the connection for all four are parents. Parents help the children with their identity. That was the answer to question number one, right? Parents help their children with their identity. And then what happens is that they teach them about relationship when they're young, and they advise them in relationship with their when they're older. And then when it comes down to it, when they become parents, they're doing the same thing now. They're teaching, they're advising, they're connecting, and also they're introducing them to their creator and their parents. So that level of respect that grandchildren give to their grandparents come through the parent, because the parent respects them, like you've seen so many different times in the chat, and like we talked about here. So the parent teaches the child to respect their grandparents. So the respect that the elderly community gets from the grandchildren or the younger generation comes through the parent. So if there's a dysfunction there, it's only because the parent didn't teach it. I want to be transparent when I say that. It's only because the parent didn't teach it. If you have a child right now and that child is still within your custody, still within your household, it is important that that child understands respect. When I was growing up, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, and no ma'am, that was common language. It was like a way of life. And it wasn't like forced down my throat. It was taught. I seen my mother saying yes, sir, to my grandfather. So guess what I did? I said yes, sir, to my grandfather. I think that's important. That's an important piece, right? Elders need to feel as though they're respected. They have years and years and years of experience that they're just looking forward to pass along to some child that respects them enough to listen. That's the last piece I want to share with you there. Listen, as a younger generation, we should be excited to listen to the older generation talk. Sometimes, not sometimes, every time I'm around my mother, I just want to listen to her talk. I don't care what she's talking about. I'm all ears and I'm invested in what she's talking about, because she passes along so much wisdom in just random conversation. I think it's amazing. And the funny part about it, we talk about that alone. We talk about how good it is to be in the company of elders to hear the wisdom that they share. So if you don't take anything from what we've said in these past 4 weeks, understand that the gateway to learning comes through the parent. So parents, we have to. Our children are dependent upon us to teach them the lessons, not the struggle. Don't teach them the struggle. Teach them the lessons. That's important. So, with that being said, I hope that you found this conversation useful. I thank each and every one of you who had the opportunity to listen. Again, if you found value in this conversation, again, look in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, click on the emblem, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Share it with other people, because I think that they will find value in this conversation just as you did. And with that being said, we will see you guys again next Friday night at 8 p.m. on the Hearts and Mind of the Hearts and Men podcast. Great evening.